So can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I was saying just a minute ago that I can talk about the syllabus all day long. So I've helped, I've supported students in talking about the syllabus from many different positions in higher education, as an instructor, as an advisor, now as a person in academic support, and also as an academic coach. So I like to spend a little bit of time just kind of mentioning how important it is. And Kyle, and if we have any other students joining us, it's just, I know right now, the first week of class, it can be overwhelming because you're going over your syllabi in each of your classes. And to me, like, that's hard. And I know that my own kids struggle with it because you're looking at this semester long plan, and you're doing it all in 1 week, and you're, going from class to class and doing it over and over again. And it sometimes can be a little bit overwhelming. But I don't want you to get frustrated with that instrument or that document, because it's something that's going to be able to help you be successful as you move forward. So we'll talk about, kind of begin with what is a syllabus, and the formal definition from Stanford is a syllabus is a guide to a course and what will be expected of students, you the student, in the course. And generally it will include policies, rules and regulations, required texts, and a schedule of assignments. And then it outlines nearly everything the student needs to know about how a course will be run and what is expected of them as students. And I like to just kind of take this little paragraph that looks like it's a lot and break it down into just the fact that it's a contract, basically. We can look at the syllabus as a contract between the students and the professor or the instructor of the class. So it's always nice to be able to, hold on to a contract. If you obviously you're not signing a syllabus, although I did work in an institution where we did sign the course policies, but we don't do that here. But if you ever need to go back and kind of figure out what the expectations are, your syllabus is the first place that you should check. So the syllabus is important for a number of reasons, and I've outlined them here, and we'll talk about each one of them in a little bit more detail. So the syllabus is going to have the basic course information. It's going to outline the course objectives. It will let you know what types of materials you need for the course. You should see, some expectations in that course or in that syllabus. And then most syllabi will have a schedule of assignments for the semester. And then also we can look at grading to kind of understand a little bit more of how the course is set up for you. So if we look at the basic course information, what's important for you to know at the very fundamental level, number one, know your instructor's name. And so your instructor's name, as well as the course name, should be on all of your syllabi. It's important for you to know your instructor's name for a number of reasons. First and foremost, to just kind of get you engaged in the course. When you kind of show up and don't know the instructor's name, that might be the first indication that maybe you're not 100% engaged. So know your instructor's name. And additionally, when you are, meeting with support staff on campus, or, starting to engage with other students on campus, knowing the instructors can be a good way for you to kind of connect, especially if you want to talk about a particular course. You should find campus and meeting information on each of your syllabi, and this is particularly important since, the fall semester of 2020 and moving forward, because there are so many different ways to meet. And as we're hopefully transitioning back to campus, that will continue. So, this is where you're going to find out if you're a hybrid course or a flex course, or if you're meant to be on campus in a certain classroom, or if you're meant to never go to campus, or if you're meant to never actually, connect with your instructor and it's fully asynchronous. So this information is going to be super important as you go over your syllabi. Office hours may be outlined on your syllabus, as well as contact information for how you're going to get in touch with each instructor. And that can be different from instructor to instructor. Some might want a phone call, some might want to be checking their email in order to look at communication. And your syllabus will also list pre and co-requisites, which I'll talk to you about when I share some examples, as well as a brief course description. So, for example, if we look at, and I was lucky enough to have some faculty share some, and as well as Kevin, share some syllabi with me to kind of be able to give you some specific examples. So this is like the general template for Monco for what your syllabus might look like. So you might have, quite a few syllabi that have this general structure. but then you also might have some that don't look like this. So, if it looks a little different, it's okay, you're still in the right place. But just to kind of give you a brief understanding, you can see for this particular syllabus, it has a location, it has a campus, it has a location in a room, and then it also says online. So we can probably assume that this course is either going to be flex or hybrid. However, if I look at the course code, I'm going to go ahead and think it's hybrid, meaning that I'm going to be on campus one day and I'm going to be online for the rest of the time. So I'm expected to be in a room at some point through the week, right? When you're flex, you have a little bit more flexibility. And then of course, if you're fully online, you're not going to have a room, and I'll show you an example of that. So this also tells, of the office location. This person probably is not necessarily meeting in the office at this time, probably meeting via Zoom. And then the email address, how to get in touch with this particular instructor. Notice this course has no prerequisites and no co-requisites. So that's going to kind of be important for you and for your success to understand those two terms. And we can kind of look at that down here. But you'll see here for this example that this one's fully online. So we're not seeing a campus or a classroom, right? It clearly states that there's no face-to-face meetings. And again, gives the email address for contact information. But this course has a prerequisite. Okay, so a co-requisite would mean like if you are in a science course and you have to take the lecture along with the lab. And so those two go together in order for you to be successful in both. Now this course has a prerequisite of EDU 100. And so it's important for you, even though you have advisors, even though you have instructors, you as a student are ultimately responsible for your education. So if you're finding that you have not met that prerequisite and somehow you got into this course, it's a question that you should ask, because that prerequisite is what's going to set you up to be successful in this level course, if that makes sense. So this is just a brief, an example of a course description for the information literacy course that it would be wonderful if Kevin could run, but he did create a really nice syllabus for it. And this is just like the brief overview of what the course is going to be about to give you, set some expectations for you as a student, and give you a broader idea of what will be happening as you go through the semester. Just a quick example, and we'll be coming back to that in just a second. So when you have, your course description, you can go even further, and most of your syllabi are going to actually have objectives or outcomes, which are a little bit more detailed. I love bullet points, and most of the time you're going to see your objectives and outcomes, listed in bullet points. So basically, these objectives are going to set goals for the course. What is supposed to be happening during the semester in this course. They often explain the reason for general education courses, and so that often, that does tend to be a concern for students who, come to school for nursing or for business or for criminal justice. Why am I taking a philosophy course? Why am I taking an English course? I'm not writing. I don't need to write papers as a nurse. I don't need to, do these things that are required in some of my history course or something like that. The course objectives will help you kind of understand and make those connections as to why this is going to be useful for your major or your intended career. The course objectives, that list is also, it encourages self-awareness for students and helps you reflect throughout the semester if you are actually meeting those objectives. Am I understanding what I'm supposed to be understanding throughout the semester? And am I gaining this education or knowledge that I'm supposed to be gaining throughout the semester? So here is, so again, back to like a general education course, that information literacy course. This is just like some bullet points of the learning outcomes or expectations for that course. I won't read them all off to you, but explore the role of inquiry within college level research, evaluate information sources for credibility, expertise, and relevance to the research inquiry, recognize the value of crediting original works through a formal method of attribution. So these things we can see, these can help us in all of our courses, right? If you're in school for nursing, you kind of need to know how to do research, and you also need to know how to document that research. So you can see that these outcomes are going to help you be successful cross-curricularly. And again, you're going to want to come back and say, am I learning this as the semester goes through? Do I feel like I'm gaining this information? Here's another kind of list of outcomes. And this one is actually for a class that would be more considered in major. And the nice thing about this is it gives you the outcome for the class, but it also connects it to standards for the national, for a national accreditation this is for education. So not only do you see the outcomes that you should be learning and want to be checking yourself throughout the semester, but you can also see, well, how's this going to actually help me in my end game, which I think is really, this is nice and specific. On your syllabus, another really important section of the syllabus is going to be materials. And so a lot of times people come into higher education and they say, you know, I have to take care of the tuition. And then, you know, often they say, okay, I've taken care of the tuition and then it stops there. But you're going to have a list of materials, and those materials are going to be, if it's written on your syllabus, it means they're necessary for success. So yes, it does, you know, incur additional cost. But again, the cost that the price that you paid for the tuition is going to be, it's going to be necessary to kind of be successful for, you know, that money that you outlaid by purchasing these extra materials. So you might see that there's textbooks listed in the list of materials. You might see that there's access codes listed. You might see that there's technology that's listed in the materials that are necessary for you to be successful in the course. And then you also might find that there's additional materials. So for example, you might find that it's listed that you need to make sure that you're accessing Blackboard for additional articles and readings. So that's going to be important for you to know that those are materials that are going to help you be successful in this course. And unless you see the word optional, it means you kind of have to do it. So that's important for you to recognize, for students to recognize. So here's like a really good example where like you just can't get it wrong. It's got the picture of the textbook that you need. It's got the picture of the access code that you need. You've got your ISBN. So, you know, we're not supposed to ever recommend that you buy outside of your own college bookstore, but sometimes people do. And here is the ISBN number that you would just have to look up. This gives you the edition. It gives you the authors. And then down here at the access card, it's telling you exactly which package that you need, the MyLab programming with Pearson eText. And these aren't option, you know, these aren't like one or the other. This is like, you need this textbook, but then you're also going to need this online access card, probably to do your homework and any kind of practice problems, etc. I like this example. This, you know, gives us the required text. It gives, you know, you shouldn't have a problem finding it. It's a 14th edition, tells you that, gives you the title, gives you the authors. There's not an ISBN, but, you know, this is very good identifying information. But this also tells you the technology that you're going to need in order to be successful in the course. So not only do you need internet access, but you're also going to need some type of word processing software. It does tell you that you can download that for free through Monco, the Microsoft 365. So it lets you know that. Also lets you know that you're going to need to use your MC3 email account. That's how the communication is going to go back and forth. What I like about this is it doesn't necessarily, you know, I think a lot of students coming from high school or from another institution of higher learning might say, well, this is common sense. But for our population at Monco, we might see a lot of people coming back to school for, you know, after 20, 25 years, and we didn't necessarily need it. Well, we didn't have internet access when I was in college for my undergrad, first of all, but we didn't necessarily, we were kind of coming into that word processing. You know, I was typing a little bit in the beginning, but then we all got word processors and then the computers came around. So this is something that might be really, really important and not necessarily common sense for folks who are coming back after a number of years. But that's necessary for this course because it's listed under the course materials. Your syllabus is also going to lay out a list of expectations for you as a student. And sometimes it'll lay out the expectations that you should have for your instructors. So you might see expectations regarding attendance. You might see expectations regarding engagement, and it could be different, you know, from syllabus to syllabus. Technology use, what you can and can't do in the classroom, as far as the technology that you may or may not bring, and communication expectations. So I'll just give you a couple examples of these guys. This is a very detailed attendance policy. And so it is very clear how you may lose points if you were to miss more than 3 classes in this class. So this, I always say to my own kids that it's really important that they understand their attendance policy. So I have a son who's at Penn State University and he's in classes of 350, 400 students. And sometimes he'll say to me, well, I'm just teaching this to myself anyway, so I might not go to class. And I always say, you need to pull out that syllabus and look at your attendance policy, because even if you've taught it to yourself correctly and you've done well on all your tests and you've done well on all your projects or papers, you might still be getting docked points for your attendance. So this one's very clear. After the third class, you're going to start missing points. Okay, you're going to start getting your points deducted. I know there was a point when I taught developmental English, and part of developmental teaching is also accountability. And so after 3 classes missed unexcused, unfortunately, the student couldn't pass. There were pass-fail classes, and the fourth absence was a fail. And it was very clearly written out. And I was, always, if you had an excuse and we could, talk about that, then that was one thing. But it's really important to be aware of your attendance policy, because it could be very detrimental to your grade. This one's a little bit different. This is for an online course. And so it's not quite as specific, but it is still informational. So here it says, your attendance equals engagement in course required activities. So if you're in an online course and you're just logging in, and then, like some of my experiences then, and then like maybe, getting rid of your video for the synchronous meetings and just walking away, that's not the same thing as actually attending. So you have to participate. Now, maybe for the asynchronous courses, there might be like, a number of posts that you have to do within the week in order to be considered attending the course. So it's really important that you understand that too for online or remote meetings. This is these are two different examples of expectations as far as communication. And so one thing that's listed in this first one here is that students are responsible for all communication sent via Blackboard. That means if your instructor posts an announcement on Blackboard, you're responsible for it. It's written right here. It was on the syllabus, and that's something that you would need to know. So that doesn't fall under like, oh, I didn't know. That kind of, that backup that we sometimes, myself included, tend to use. That's because it's here on the syllabus. That means you've got to be checking your Blackboard as well as your Monco email account. So it is important to know that all students are required to use their Monco email accounts for communications through anyone at the college. This is a different example. This one's a little bit more specific, and it also lays out the expectations that the student can have for the instructor. So without me reading through the whole thing, it basically says that this guy doesn't get back to you within 24 hours, Monday through Friday, or 48 hours over the weekend, then something went wrong. So send him the email again, okay? So whether he accidentally clicks, the trash thing, which I sometimes do as I'm scrolling down my emails, or it got lost somewhere or got jumbled up, it basically is just saying, hey, listen, this is what you can expect from me, but if you're finding that you're not getting a response, then I expect from you that you resend that email. And then a really, really good thing, and again, one of the things that overwhelms us in the beginning of the semester that we might find on our syllabus is the schedule of assignments, quizzes and tests, and assigned readings. So this, I want to stop and pause for a moment on the assigned readings part, because this is where we might find one of our biggest, well, other than the amount of hours you're in class, but one of our biggest differences between college, or between high school and college, is the assigned readings. Often in high school, before you leave a class or before you leave school for the day, the teacher might write on the board, don't forget to read chapters 2 and 3, before we meet again. And then you write it down, and and you go and do your homework. In college, for the most part, for each class that you're in that classroom for 3 hours a week. And that is probably not going to be enough for you to learn everything that you need to learn for that course, particularly math and science. And, well, there's lots of other courses. I don't want to call any of them out, but the reality is you need to be preparing before you get to class. And the likelihood is that your syllabus is going to tell you what you need to do to prepare. So if you have assigned readings on your syllabus, your course schedule on your syllabus, that means the expectation is that you've already done those readings before you come to class. And then now you've got this person in front of you who you can ask questions of, ask clarification from, and and that those readings that you've previously done will now be augmented by the human in front of you. So I get excited about that. I also like talking about reading effectively. But make sure that you're checking your syllabus for these things, and the major assignments and the quizzes that can help you manage your time throughout the semester. So if you know you've got a couple, quizzes or tests, every third week, you might want to like kind of budget your time for that, as well as, a 10-page paper would definitely need your time budgeted. Another thing that's really important for you to recognize and pay attention to on your syllabus is how your class is going to be graded. So a lot of times, well, it depends, but you might have some instructors who grade just solely on a point level. So you've got 100 points that would equal 100% of your grade. And, some things are worth 5 points, some things are worth 20 points, some things are worth, 30 points. And so that's straightforward. Or you might have a point system where everything adds up and it's out of 360. And then you're able to say, okay, well, I'm at 325. I earned 325 points and it's out of 360. So I can calculate my average. However, there are some courses that actually have weighted assignments. So therefore, it doesn't matter the points, it matters the weight. So it matters the weight of what, each assignment or each group of assignments is. So you might see all of your homeworks are worth 10% of your grade. All of your discussion boards are worth 5% of your grade. Paper number 1 is worth 25% of your grade. And so you can see there, okay, if I, unfortunately can't hand in one homework, that might not have too much of an impact. But if I can't hand in paper number 1, that's quite a big impact, 25% of my grade. You might also see that the participation varies by class. So you might have a participation grade worth 10 points out of 100 points in one of your classes, or it might be worth 25% in one of your classes that's more discussion based, right? And then another thing that you might find, and I always refer students back to this when they come and say, well, I don't know why I'm not earning the number of points that I think I should be earning. Sometimes there's a rubric, a general rubric for your class embedded in your syllabus. So I know I've had students come to me and say, well, I keep doing my discussion boards and I'm doing what I thought I was supposed to be doing, but I can never earn the full points. And I'll say, let's take a look at your syllabus. And in the syllabus, it might say, here's my expectation for a discussion board post. Respond to 2 other students in 150 words or less, and then post your own post, 300 words with a specific example. Okay, so that's giving you how you can earn those points. Or you might have a grid that has objectives and how you're going to, however you meet each of those objectives are the points that you can earn. If you don't meet the objectives, you can't earn the points. So always look in your syllabus to see if you can find like a general rubric if you're not understanding the expectation of an assignment in your class. This is not a rubric, however, it is giving you very specific information about how your work needs to be delivered to this particular instructor. So neat and legible, meaning like I, not you, can read it. Written in pencil, have circled, boxed, or otherwise indicated the solutions. So this is a math class, the solutions, the answers. So you might have the answer, but if you haven't circled, boxed, or otherwise indicated that where the answer is in your work, you might not get the full number of points for that. Also, when requested, you would need to submit electronically. So this is kind of being clear for you how your work is expected to be delivered to your instructor. And I will tell you, I worked with an English instructor, and he knew what he was doing. Great instructor, taught the students very well, but he was a little bit, he was having trouble with his sight. And so he wanted everything to be 16-point font. And students couldn't understand, why am I not getting my full points on my paper? But they weren't doing the 16-point font. And as ridiculous as that sounds, it was still the expectation. And it was in his syllabus. I double checked. So. And then the other couple things that you might find and are responsible for if they're in your syllabus is any type of policy or resources that are available to you. So policies might be course specific, like lab etiquette, different online meeting platforms. So you might meet via Zoom in one class or via Blackboard Collaborate in another class. This might give you information about what to do if you have late work or you've missed tests. So make sure that you're being making yourself aware of those policies, as well as college-wide policies. So these are going to be policies that nobody wants to sit down and read. However, you are responsible to know them and understand them. So some of the syllabi have links directly to the academic integrity and FERPA policies. Some might just have paragraphs for like acceptable use of technology within the classroom. And then you also want to always know your resources that are available to you. And hopefully this first week or first couple of weeks of classes is kind of giving you an idea what those resources are, but they are often listed out in your syllabi. So that's basically all I have. And I don't know if we had any more folks. It looks like we had more folks join us while I was droning on and on. Does anybody have any questions that Kevin or I can answer about the syllabus? Typically, there are things that come up as the semester progresses, but I know Kevin has a really great tool to share as well. So I'll pass it over.
Well, welcome Faith and Morgan, in addition to Kyle here. My contribution today is going to build on what you've already received. And so I'm going to give you something that you can take with you. We'll also see it on the main screen, but first I'm going to jump over here to the chat and I'm going to paste this in. I hope this will work so that you can get this. Just a simple Word document, which should look something like, almost. Here we go. Let's try that again. My syllabus worksheet. So one of the things that we do know is that syllabi are, there's a lot that goes into them, as most contracts, because it is a contract, as Kimberly told you at the beginning. These things are constantly, there's new information that's constantly being put into these two, and they become longer and longer as a result, despite our efforts to make them easy and readable. But there are certain elements that you may want to start with first. If you're looking for things to highlight or things to mark or flag in some way, shape, or form. You can do this electronically. You can do this if you print it out. And you can also use something like this syllabus worksheet that I just sent you guys if you want to hold up for each one of your classes and ask yourself, what is required for this particular course? I don't know why some of these are coming out bold when I brought it here. That's not supposed to be bold. That might just be when I brought it into Word. Let me try one more thing before we go on. Yeah, it's not bold in there, so I'm going to use that version first. There, not through Chrome. That's better. So try applying this to some of your work, and you have elements of attendance. You have what was talked about point values and what is valued and how much it's valued, how often you should check on things, especially in this era of classes that are hybrid or online entirely. You want to be very clear about how often you go in, how to contact. We talked about that and all the different ways that works. We talked a little bit about required textbooks and materials. To add on to that, something that I wanted to send, but I didn't want to interrupt Kimberly, but know that if you follow your resources to the book advance credits, if that's a thing that applies to you, some people that will apply to, that is something that you can take advantage of if you have that ability. There's some language about it here about how you can apply financial aid to books if you see some of them expenses that you weren't expecting. Get back to my Word document here. And so I pasted that in there. This can also, some other examples that we didn't talk about, but you may see later on, might also be things like art supplies, uniforms. Not all things are going to be books or access to ebooks. And you will be able to see that through the bookstore site that we have through eCampus, which maybe you guys have already seen, but that would be mc3.ecampus.com if you haven't already. Hopefully you're already there and you've encountered this and you've gotten that settled, but sometimes people are still looking for supplies. And so certainly let us know if at some point in time you're struggling to find something and you like some help. I've been answering those throughout the week, which is a normal week 1 and 2 thing to do for the libraries, is to help people get books. We have a little bit in here. You can check on how Blackboard discussions work and what your participation level has to be. And I also had a little bit in here about, you can check and see if there are anything that you need to know about what to do if you do feel like you're struggling. What do you see in your syllabus that talks about getting help for the course? I mean, maybe it's going to steer you towards tutors and librarians, but I also want you guys to think about add and drop periods for courses, talking to your advisors and thinking about your long-term plans. It may seem like a lot to think about, in early September, but it is good to be aware of that if you are adjusting your plans, or if you have lots of things that could come up, life issues. We know that's always a thing. Other things that didn't make it to forming a actual question for you to answer, but things I wanted you to look for were populating your calendars, however you do it, with due dates for everything you can. Electronically is great if you can set up any kind of alerts, but there are other ways to do it. If you prefer to, use pen and paper, or if you have other systems for where your calendars are supported. I imagine you guys have already looked at some of your calendars that pop up when you are in the tools of the college, like the college portal, but however you want to do it, I would just recommend plugging that in throughout the semester so that you're not taken by surprise. There is also a thing called an assignment calculator that we don't have that integrated into our tools yet, but if you are ever writing a paper, or are you doing a speech or a presentation, you can always find a lot of these out there. Assignment calculators are fantastic for plugging in a due date and then looking backwards, having it create for you how many days you have and what you should have accomplished at each stage of the game. One example I'm going to show you is just like the sort of example. It's from calculator. We're going to get the one from University of Minnesota to start. And that is just anyone can use this. You don't have to be at the college there. And that is in the chat now as well. So that's just an assignment calculator, which would allow you to decide, first of all, what it is, and then plug in the start and due dates, and it'll send out all of the milestones. So keep that in mind if you're ever trying to do a longer term project, even if it's one that hasn't really come up yet. It's on the syllabus. Maybe you see some dates there, and you can provide yourself with a milestone ahead of time, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks ahead, and say, oh, this is where I need to have my topics settled on right now. So I'm not in the last few days trying to scramble, and I'm not reliant on the instructor to remind me that X, Y, or Z is due. Okay. And that's about it for me. There's some things about, we could say more about plagiarism, but that's covered by a lot of the policies that we already talked about. I'll give you one more link, and that's just the policy page if you need to see that. Some of this stuff might come up through your portal when you log in. Maybe you've been asked to sign off on things like acceptable use of technology or other tools. But if you wanted to find out where all of these things are, they are on the website, not even on the portal, but on the main website, which we can get from, let's go back to mc3.edu and policies and procedures. You can get that here. And that includes more things than you probably even need to see at this point, but I would point out something like Student Academic Code of Ethics, and academic progression, grade appeals, all that fun stuff is all in there under the academic affairs area. Okay, well, I'm going to stop sharing now. And shall we stop recording? If anybody has any other individual questions, if you guys wanted to hold up a syllabus to us